Hey guys, welcome back to TTMR. We're back with me, Sean, Austin, Zinks, and Quinn, and today we will be reviewing the first half of Cobra Kai Season 5, where we will be giving a brief summary, our thoughts, and how we rated each of the first 5 episodes. Make sure to subscribe and turn on our notifications so you don't miss when we upload the second part.
This long-awaited new season of Cobra Kai begins with a fight-style monologue from Terry Silver talking about expanding Cobra Kai. Soon after, Amanda sees Chosen Taguchi doing laps in her pool and soon realizes that he is naked doing a common Chosen ritual. This makes her furious because she thought all the karate nonsense was in the past after Kreese had been put in jail. This episode then cuts to Miguel searching for his dad in Mexico. He realizes his phone has no service and asks a couple of gentlemen for help. Miguel soon notices that they have his backpack and are telling him to give them money. Instead of using karate to fight them off, Miguel gives them the money and walks away. Then the show cuts back to Daniel closing the dojo because earlier in the show, he said he would if they had lost to Cobra Kai in the All Valley tournament, which did end up happening. He also continues to explain that because of the expansion of Cobra Kai, he's worried about everyone in Miyagi-Do and doesn't want a target to be on their backs. Daniel and Chosen later decide to go to the grand new opening of Cobra Kai, and Chosen realizes as the members start to fight that he is familiar with the moves they are doing. These moves were called Tang Sudo, created by his sensei. Then, at the very end of the episode, Terry Silver states that they will need a new sensei due to all the new members of Cobra Kai. This sensei is later revealed to be Chosen. I think that this episode was really enjoyable. I loved all the drama that occurred during it, and I also really enjoyed the cliffhanger at the end because it made me confused and intrigued at the same time. The introduction to a new dark type of karate also got me hooked. I rated this episode a 10 out of 10 because, like I said earlier, I loved the cliffhanger and the drama that occurred.
Episode 2 opens up with a flashback in Okinawa 1972, where we see Chosen training with his former sensei. This is a very big point in Chosen's development because this is where his strong sense of honor and pride come from. Then we cut to a new and improved Cobra Kai dojo where we see Daniel and Chosen's new plan to take down Silver, with Chosen being one of the newest senseis to try and figure out the future of Cobra Kai. This plan begins to work later throughout the episode as we see Silver invite Chosen over to talk about their similar karate styles. Whilst this is happening, we see Johnny and Robbie go and hunt for Miguel. Meanwhile, Miguel and his dad go to a fight club as we learn why his mother was so concerned, as it seemed he was in the mafia, and he expresses that he had no remorse for what he did to Miguel and his mother. Miguel is fed up with his father's words, so he leaves and sees Johnny and Robbie as they head back to the valley. As this episode concludes, we see that Terry was one step ahead the entire time, knowing that Chosen was lying. This episode, at least for me, was pretty enjoyable as I felt hooked throughout the entire episode. But this episode also made the Mexico arc kind of pointless since Miguel never told his father that he was his son. But I loved when Miguel leaves Mexico with Johnny developing both the characters, but it wasted so much potential. On the other hand, I loved Chosen's infiltration of Cobra Kai. It honestly is amazing. I also love how he dug so deep into Chosen's background, which is just helping us understand Chosen not only as a character but as a person. Then finally, Silver was absolutely devious in this episode, and I was all for it. I also love the connection that Chosen has with Silver. I would have to give this episode a 9 out of 10 mainly because of the wasted potential with the Mexico story, but aside from that, this episode was a great watch.
Episode 3 starts off by showing Silver interrupting a nice day out between Daniel and Chosen, then quickly cuts to Miguel back at home with his mother and grandmother as he's trying to get back to being at home after his trip to Mexico. We see Samantha as her and Miguel are going through a rough patch in their relationship. We cut back to Daniel as he explains to Chosen that there's only one man who could come back to help Silver. Karate's bad boy, Mike Barnes. We then get to see Carmen and Johnny have a conversation where she tells Johnny she's pregnant, and after this, Miguel is out with his friends as Hawk is getting a new tattoo. Sam and Miguel go back and forth with each other until eventually Sam's friends take her out to find herself, and Miguel's friends take him to buy a necklace for Sam. Daniel and Chosen are out searching for Mike Barnes as Carmen and Johnny have an argument about how Johnny isn't ready or responsible enough to take care of a child. Daniel and Chosen confront Barnes, which eventually turns out to be a huge misunderstanding as Barnes is now a furniture store owner and has no ties to Terry Silver anymore. And as this is going on, Johnny has been working on cleaning his apartment to make sure he's ready to be there for his child. Towards the end of this episode, Miguel finds the perfect necklace for Sam, but when they meet up, she breaks up with him and he drops the necklace and leaves. Johnny and Carmen have a talk where Johnny tells her that he is ready to be there for their child. And lastly, we see Silver walk out of the smoke in a sauna and confronts Daniel about calling his old employer, where he tells Daniel, "I warned you," and we immediately cut to see Mike Barnes' furniture store burning down. First, I gotta start off by mentioning
Mike fucking Barnes.
Holy shit, I literally jumped out of my chair when I heard that. That's right, the bad boy of karate has made his return, and it's long overdue. I adore this episode for multiple reasons, but my two favorites have to be the whole Miguel and Sam issue, and obviously Mike Barnes' return. The way they handled the breakup just felt so real, and it makes you feel extremely sorry for Miguel, as we've seen him come such a long way in these 5 seasons. I also loved seeing Chosen and Barnes interact with each other, as it's such a big moment because it really makes the whole Karate Kid world feel like it's coming together. Overall, I absolutely loved this episode. I could go on and on forever about why this episode is so amazing. As you may be able to already tell, I rated this episode with a perfect score of 10 out of 10. I adored all the development in this episode, the scenes were shot beautifully, and the story in this episode was phenomenal.
Episode 4 starts off with a montage that takes place from Carmen's point of view and ends up being a dream. While Daniel and Chosen are trying to make sure that Silver won't attack, Daniel has Chosen look after his place. Daniel and Amanda then head out to a charity auction. Johnny has also been looking for a job after finding out that Carmen was pregnant, to which Shannon also finds out. Shannon suggests the job to Johnny and he takes it. When Daniel and Amanda arrive at the auction, Silver shows up, which puts Daniel on edge, especially since it takes place at Silver's house as well. Going back to Johnny, he is able to get a smartphone for $50, which allows him to do his new job, picking up and delivering food to people, which he sucks at and doesn't take the job seriously. Meanwhile, all of the teenagers are at the water park, where Kenny and his Cobra Kai buddies bully Anthony and push him into the pool. Silver manipulates Amanda to make her think that he is good with Daniel, and that he isn't a bad person anymore. At the water park, Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do begin to argue about who really owns the water park, and it is decided that it will be settled with a race between Tori and Hawk. Hawk's tube is popped and he ends up losing the race. A fight commences and then everyone gets kicked out of the park. The auction begins with Daniel auctioning 3 bonsai trees, which Silver wins the bid. Then, after Silver is talking to the founder of the event about Amanda, which makes Daniel angry, which then he shoves Silver in front of everyone and is made looking like the bad guy, which ruins everything for Amanda. Afterwards, Daniel and Amanda get into an argument about how Daniel can't let things go, to which Daniel insists he has to stop Silver, which leads to Amanda leaving. This was a great episode. I enjoyed it and there was good humor in it, and the scenes with the water park fight and the scene between Daniel and Silver were really interesting to watch. At the end where Amanda leaves was a pretty good cliffhanger as well. I give this episode a 10 out of 10 because of how enjoyable it was. It didn't really get boring at any parts and was overall great.
Episode 5 of Cobra Kai begins with us seeing Stingray again, with Silver giving him the Cobra Kai car that Johnny had in Season 1 and a new house with many things in it. Daniel is extremely down about being alone due to his wife leaving because of Silver's manipulations, which she later realizes and comes back at the end of the episode. Until then, Daniel and Chosen see Stingray in his new car and follow him back to his house, where the two interrogate him. However, this ultimately results in a waste of time as Stingray won't budge, which made Daniel lash out and accidentally break his PS4. At the end of the episode, Daniel returns to make amends with Stingray because he had decided that losing his family over Silver was not worth it, but instead of Stingray, he finds Silver in the house. Silver doesn't accept the surrender and beats him badly, and leaves him on the ground. What also happened this episode was the forgiveness between Robbie and Miguel, which happens after a lot of failed attempts on Johnny's part. After Daniel told Johnny about the old version of himself, he embraced this idea and had the two fight it out, with it resulting in the destruction of their rivalry when Miguel stops instead of hitting Robbie off of the balcony, similar to what happened earlier in the show to Miguel. Personally, I loved this episode of Cobra Kai. I really liked seeing how Daniel was dealing with being alone with Chosen, and having to deal with Silver practically on his own. Also, that final scene with Silver coming out from behind him when he returns to Stingray's new house was absolutely amazing to me. The scene begins with tension upon seeing nobody in the house and lights dimmed, and then out of the shadows comes the villain towering over Daniel, seen as he fails to make peace with Silver as Silver rejects the peace, leaving Daniel on the ground full of injuries and alone. As a villain, I absolutely adore Silver for his manipulative nature and personal connection to Daniel, which is my favorite kind of villain by far. Having him as a villain is just so freaking cool to me, and I literally do not think there was a single scene with this guy that is disinteresting in the slightest. I also really liked Robbie and Miguel finally ending their rivalry through the help of Johnny, and seeing both of their faces as Johnny accidentally tells them that he's gonna have another kid. Overall, I absolutely loved this episode, and I could probably talk for days about how great it is. It will not come as much of a surprise then that I rate this episode with a perfect score of 10 out of 10. I just honestly loved what they did with this episode, and the two best examples of this are how Miguel and Robbie finally become friends after all this time, and Silver being one of the most satisfying villains to watch ever for me personally.
So with that being said, that has been our review of the first half of Cobra Kai Season 5.
Remember that this is just our opinion, so you don't necessarily have to believe everything that is said here.
Come back soon for more reviews or browse existing ones on the channel.
Make sure you check out our Twitter for sneak peeks and updates on future projects.
We hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and if you enjoyed, you could like or subscribe to help us out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.